Let's talk about the Chinese Grand Prix. Starting from the bottom of the constructors, the only team to yet score points in 2025, Alpine. Especially after the wing change because of the FIA technical directive, the car looks a bit inconsistent or unpredictable. There's a word in between those two that I'm looking for. Pierre Gasly made up 3 positions in the opening lap, and he ended the race at P11, just missing those points again. Then he had a post-race disqualification. Gasly was only a kilogram underweight, which is 2.2 pounds. We'll get a little more into this when we talk to Ferrari, but I have a feeling it's not only tire degradation. It turns out the hard tire was actually extremely long to the point where even a new set of tires versus one that was like 20 laps old was only like 0.7 seconds of a lap difference. Again, more on that later when we get to Ferrari. And then there's Jack Doohan. He has a 1-lap performance very close to Gasly, which is great, but then he doesn't have the race pace to escape the bottom of the pack, which is kind of the whole point of racing. Doohan also copped 4 penalty points. 2 points and a 10-second penalty for elbowing Hajar out of the way during the race, and another 2 points for his incident with Lando during the sprint race. Overall, Alpine really can't be giving up these points, especially when the midfield is getting kind of close. Up next, Racing Bulls. Isaac Hajar was let down by his team strategy-wise. The 2-stopper was not it. And Yuki Tsunoda screwed over again. Again, the team's 2-stop strategy, hard, medium, hard, and the hard, hard, medium, clearly did not help. And then there was the front wing failure due to the load, which cost additional time in the pits. There were also more comms issues with Yuki, as in miscommunications or just arguing about strategy and what's going on. Why didn't you tell me? But I want to, which we all saw on the internet. It's not even these past 2 races. This has been a thing for the past couple of years, and it's really unfortunate that this keeps happening. Kick Sauber. We're gonna chalk this to driver error. Hulkenberg qualified decently well, and then he lost control, exiting turn 3 on the first lap, and then subsequently bounced through the gravel trap, damaging the car, costing him some downforce. Bortoleto also had a similar story. He had a 1-lap fight with Behrman, which forced him into an early pit stop to change his damaged tires. It was just a very bad weekend for both of them. Aston Martin. Fernando Alonso had a brake problem a few laps into the race, I think till lap 4, so he failed to finish the first 2 races of the Formula 1 season, which is the first time since the final year of McLaren Honda. Various post-race news sources have made it pretty clear that he should have scored pretty decently if he was able to stay in the race. Now, Aston Martin might have also underperformed with Lance Stroll, who was running 7th after a pretty good opening stint, running at a similar pace to those behind him despite being on older tires. However, Aston just left Stroll out a little too long on his hards. They didn't get the timing right there. But with the post-race disqualifications, that helped Stroll move up into 9th. And another positive thing is, which is wild for me to say, is that Stroll's had a really good start to the season. So if Alonso can just stay in the race, Aston Martin will be up there in points. Up next, Haas. And this is the weekend I wanted from them this entire time. This is what I expected when I was talking about them in preseason. We have double points even before any of the disqualifications came into play. On a standard medium-hard strategy and a really early pit stop timing that worked out, Esteban Ocon had great speed. He passed Antonelli with 2 wheels off in the grass, which was really fun, though Antonelli did have floor damage, so asterisks on that. And he came in 5th place after the disqualifications. Behrman and Haas banked on a reverse hard medium strategy, and the timing was perfect. He had to face a long stint on the medium tires, but he dealt with it. When he went into hards, did a lot of passes, he initially got only 1 point, but then picked up 4 after the disqualifications. I do also want to stand up for Ali here. On F1 TV, they played his radio where he was saying ciao to drivers as he was passing them.
Ciao. Thanks for Ali.
And I saw some wild pushback on social media, and I just have to say, you are all soft. If a 19-year-old saying ciao while passing drivers isn't what gets you angry on the internet, then I am surprised you've made it thus far. I guess I might also understand my bias here. I am a New York sports fan. I've heard a lot of things from either the players or fans in the stadium. Ciao was so fun and adorable and lighthearted. I swear, I think it was Magnussen who actually said fuck you while he passed drivers. Ali even issued an apology, and then he said he wasn't going to do stuff like that on the radio anymore. But this slightly annoys me, because then we hear complaints about people saying that drivers don't have personalities when then they get scrutinized to their very core for just saying ciao on the radio. Haas, incredible weekend. I want to see this again in Suzuka. Up next, Ferrari. I'm going to try to keep this concise. We got a lot to get through with this team. Lewis Hamilton, a great pole to win sprint race. But then when it came to regular qualifying, both Ferraris really just showed their natural true colors and where they ended up. At the race start, they did get into a little incident, and if you remember Australia, Lewis had to avoid Leclerc so they wouldn't get into an incident. However, this time Leclerc did have a broken front wing, but he ended up finishing P5. Lewis finished right behind him at P6 after a swap on the track, and it's totally fine to be consistent at a P5, P6, but I really think they can extract more from the car and then align their strategy and at least fight for a P3. We are so close to getting there. So the big headlines with Ferrari. Both Ferraris were disqualified, which is the first time in the 75-year history of Formula One that has ever happened to Ferrari. You might be thinking, Ashley, in the 1999 Malaysian Grand Prix, both Ferraris were actually disqualified for barge boards. But Ferrari appealed that. Lewis Hamilton was disqualified for his plank being worn down too much. Ferrari said it was a setup misjudgment and running his car too low. A miscalculation. Remember that. Hold on to that. Then is Charles Leclerc's disqualification for being 1 kilogram underweight. That's right, 2.2 pounds. Something I've been seeing on the internet is tire wear is to blame for all of this. And that Charles Leclerc didn't pick up any marbles before he went to the pits. Now, if you think about that, that makes absolutely no sense. You're saying Charles Leclerc didn't pick up 2.2 pounds of marbles? Which, if you watched his onboard, he absolutely did pick up marbles. So because he did that, now you're trying to tell me he had to pick up more than 2.2 pounds? And then in my head, it also doesn't make sense, because there was a lot of one-stopping cars. All the podium finishers, and they weren't underweight. Luckily, journalist John Noble had the same exact questions, and he wrote a beautiful article in The Race, which he put way more eloquently than me, Larry David, yelling on the internet. Teams are aware of the exact calculations due to the extrapolating the data from tire wear on the other sets of tires. They know the data on a fresh set of tires hitting their maximum wear rate. It was understood that the wear rate on the hard on Sunday was less than it had been on the sprint on Saturday. John brings this up, as well as me seeing this on the internet, that's the same thing happened at Spa with George Russell. But it wasn't just tire wear with George and the marbles. Mercedes' final conclusions, there was a wore down plank and Russell's own body weight that played into the part. As John also writes, Leclerc's plank will also have been worn down, like Hamilton's, costing him some car weight. And then there is the ballast choices that Ferrari and other teams make. Ballast being the extra weight that's added to the car to allow teams to fine-tune weight distribution for handling and meet the minimum weight. You look for patterns and think about Lewis' disqualification also being a miscalculation. The evidence just points to some slight miscalculation, bad math on Ferrari's part. John also points out to this amazing quote from Fred Vasseur last year. We have to be at the limit on every single item of the car. We have to be aggressive. It's a challenge to be at the limit of weight, the limit of plank, the limit of cooling, and the limit of fuel. We're all on the edge of being disqualified every single weekend. Additionally, there was the radio drama. F1 TV seemed to have missed or allegedly didn't play some of the radio messages from Lewis and Ferrari to make it seem like the team was forcing Lewis to swap with Charles Leclerc, and Lewis doesn't want to. Charles Leclerc was faster than Lewis Hamilton. The swap made sense regardless if it came from Lewis or the team. But as Fred pointed out in a post-race interview and the transcript from the radio, points out it was even Lewis's idea. As I'm recording this on Monday, March 24th, F1 did put out a statement saying that they talked with Ferrari. It's all resolved. They had no intention of any misleading narrative regarding Ferrari's team radio due to other situations developing during the race. The radio from Lewis was not played, but it wasn't intentional. Do I believe that? No. They're in full control of the radio and they see it all. I'm good with leaving it alone. I'm just glad Fred was on their ass and nipped it at the bud so we don't get any DRS slop leaking over to our actual race experience. Up next, Williams. I think Williams as a whole is underperforming from expectations that I had in preseason. Everyone needs to just buy and invest in Alex Albon stocks right now. Him and Williams did a phenomenal job during the race, earning him a P9 and after disqualifications, a P7. Sainz says he was struggling a lot during the qualifying lap progressions with the car. Hopefully Sainz gets comfy fast. I'm not sure he has the luxury of getting adjusted with so many eyeballs on him, and if he doesn't do particularly well in a Williams, that's kind of over for his career. Red Bull Racing. Max, for a second weekend in a row, did Max things. He also wasn't overly aggressive. I think he knew what the car could and couldn't do, especially the tire degradation from Red Bull specifically. He clearly doesn't have a car to challenge for the title right now, but he's still doing the damage limitation he needs to for Red Bull to sort itself out. And Verstappen was also quite pleased when he was told that he actually outscored Lando Norris for the entire weekend. Liam Lawson. We've all seen the rumors, and I'm not going to dive into them till it is actually confirmed. I just don't care. Can say is that Red Bull has messed up. They really focused in on Max, with the car, with everything. And then, by additionally being so cutthroat in their development, they threw away so many potentially amazing drivers if they just develop them, and who do they have left? I do hope it ends up being a swap between Yuki and Liam, but till that happens, let's move on. Up next, Mercedes. Another clinical weekend. German perfection, and some might say boring. The consistency is cool to see. They have second in the constructors currently. Russell split the McLarens in qualifying and then came in P3 during the race. His main rivals are the Ferraris and Verstappen, and he beat them all to claim his second podium. Antonelli, though a rookie, came in P8 with a promotion to P6 after all the disqualifications. He also had floor damage, so maybe he could have also done even better. And for the second weekend in a row, I'm saying that I feel bad for George Russell, because my broadcast certainly didn't show him, and I understand that he was kind of an island out there alone, but they could have just mentioned how great he was doing and consistently, and the strategy was working out. Also, the post-race press conference, I believe on F1 TV, is about 21 minutes and some change. They asked George Russell 3 questions, and one of those 3 questions was about McLaren. That man's getting no love, and he's doing great. Currently number 1 in the constructors, McLaren. Are they unstoppable? This is McLaren's 50th 1-2 finish. I mean, we clearly see currently their qualifying isn't perfect for them with some close calls and minor mistakes, but the racing, great from Oscar and Lando and the McLaren strategy team and such. Piastri managed super well using the advantage of running in clear air. Norris suffered a lot with the dirty air and had a more difficult race, kind of battling with George Russell, but it prevailed nonetheless. What stuck out to me the most, again, was the post-race conference. If you don't mind, I'll read a little bit from what I wrote down. Lando said it was a tough race, an overall weekend. Struggled to get it right, not confident going into the race, so he was actually surprised that it ended up well. The car has been really understeery for him. A fun question that was asked was, do you two basically learn from each other? With Oscar saying, yeah, they have different strengths and weaknesses, and it's an advantage having very strong teammates. Lando adding, apart from Ferrari, no other team has 2 drivers who are as good and who can push themselves. He says they have a great team, a great car, 2 incredible drivers, and Zach. And per usual, after the race, I go on Instagram and ask you guys if you have any questions about what happened. I did get asked, why is FOM generating Drive to Survive radio choices during the race? LH requested the swap. We did talk about with Ferrari. Why did Ferrari swap? We did touch on that a little bit. Charles Leclerc just was faster. We talked about the 16 and 44 trouble and post-race inspections. There was the Lando brake situation, which someone asked about in my Discord. I think there's a difference between sudden brake failure and the gradual loss of braking, which happened with Lando. Also, the lift and coast from the regen hybrid system is actually really effective braking as well. He was able to manage. George Russell could have potentially passed him, right? He was only within like 1.3 seconds at the end there, but he wasn't in any imminent, immediate danger. Question for you, does the broken front wing on Leclerc's car explain him being underweight? No, they actually allow you to replace damaged parts for the weighing process. Last question, can someone explain why it doesn't say 44 under the cars that had their plank wear checked? So, not a big conspiracy theory. There is a sentence that says a front floor deflection test was carried on car numbers 81 and 44. And though not confirmed, I believe that's where they measured Lewis Hamilton's skid plate. 2 years ago, you might remember there was a skid block loophole. In the technical regulations, you were allowed 20,000 millimeters of titanium skid blocks that sit flush to the plank. In previous years of these cars, that was always put in the front edge of the splitter for wear. But that year, Red Bull added titanium allocation around the front and rear deflection measurement holes. This, in theory, was supposed to reinforce the areas where the FIA do load tests, but allow the plank around and between them to flex more. Reddit has some great examples from 2022, the Red Bull with a titanium reinforced circled, 2018 Ferrari with the skid block as a single lump at front. But then the FIA issued a technical directive. In order to ensure that the requirements of Article 3.22 are respected, the FIA reserves the right to introduce further load deflection tests on any part of the bodywork. OP suspects that Ferrari was doing the same thing, but there's no good photos. Thank you guys so much for watching. I've actually enjoyed making these videos, even though I was really nervous before to ever do something like this. If you enjoy talking about all things motorsport, not just Formula 1, just leave it in the comments. I watch IndyCar, NASCAR, IMSA, WEC, SRO. I'd love to talk to you guys about it. Or you can join my Discord, follow me on socials, whatever you prefer to talk, I will be there and happily discuss with you. Thank you so much, and I will see you in 2 weeks for the Japanese Grand Prix review.